I'm sitting up here realizing that as much as anything, perhaps these three people represent an integration for me of a lot of learning and really a whole philosophy about life and about what it means to exist in the universe. The question I would like to ask Don and Ilana is, from what they know of the work of Dr. Tomatis, like for them to share their own truths that are very, very much compatible, very along with the same work that he is doing. And in fact, I know that you're sitting here this week and you're getting little ahas because you shared that you are doing that as Dr. Tomatis is speaking. And I would also like for Dr. Tomatis to talk about his own philosophy about working with other people and finding other people taking off from his work and finding that it is something that helps to expand, what is happening, about listening, about tuning into the cosmos, about opening up with each other, and how we listen indeed with our whole self. I think all of you address this. Okay.
Starting in 1970 through 77, I was teaching at a French-Canadian school in Tokyo, and I had students from 60 countries. And being a music and humanities philosophy teacher and choir director, all in one school with embassy students, I had a unique opportunity where we had English as a second language, third language, and every accent and dialect of music and speech and movement had come together in a very unique neurological crock pot where there was really, the early students really did not speak English, and simultaneously we would have a Russian student who would be in the 11th grade who never had English, and by the end of the year was first in the class, and every exception was there. And I had the unique fate as a music teacher to suddenly become the consultant in English. Why is it that in music class and after music class their ears were better? Why was it in certain kinds of singing and toning, rhythmic activities, motor activities, movement? And in those years, in the 70s, I was using more Schulberg, a little bit of Laban, my own improvised manner of Kodai, and a lot of classical training in France. When I became director of 10,000 children's choirs, as educational director, I realized that musicians really had the answers, but we didn't know what the questions were. And that as musicians we were insulted over and over and over by trying to do things that we were not equipped to do. I became a musician because I was in love with music. And I wanted to live a life in music. I didn't want to teach reading or learning disabilities or work with psychotherapy. I didn't even know those words. And suddenly I just came to a place where I knew that if the music teacher and the musician held so many tools that were allowed, if there was a recognition by the teacher to use them in a certain way, in a certain complementary way, in an empowering way for that student, not in a performance or entertainment way, but in a real empowering of I own sound and I own rhythm, I own my voice, I own attentiveness through the listening and the skills and the joy that music must always provide. Now, I had lost my joy in music, and in another time I'll speak of that. But what did happen in a remarkable way is through the research of Dr. Tomatis, have been able to see how the brain, how the language, how the ability to learn foreign language And next month, I'm with Dr. Lozano for a week in Seattle and doing lectures on accelerated learning with music and very important language studies also. But it was a consistent, it has been a perpetual 8 years of putting these things together, that where not only musicians, but those of us who have an ability to enjoy rhythm and enjoy music can learn the order, can learn the optimal ways to perfect that ear, not only through music, but through the method and through what is emerging in this country in neurological studies and physical studies. I mean, there are so many things that are happening. And that here, for me, is very much the cream of many years of very great contemplative thought, doing the scientific work, having the musicality, and that it does integrate. And for many of us, as musicians, we've not had the opportunity to be with a teacher or mentor who has had the scientific ability to really language the systems of what the ear means. So this work is crucial for me in the survival of music in the schools and the new roles that are not going to happen in 5 years, but in the next 3 or 4 generations of being able to integrate and have high quality performance of music. And at the same time realize that we were reading, we were writing, we're communicating, we're listening better, and that the music of the spheres are of the ears.
And the whole sense of developing, teaching people how to listen with their hands feels very much in harmony with the real listening of the ear. They're both the same. No one part of the body, mind, emotions, and spirit can be dealt with without affecting everything else. So here is an entry point that is so pre-verbal, early, and the vibration of this entry point really changes the psyche of a person. So this listening hand, the cellular memory, has helped me support another quantum leap in being more brave. And after 30 years of doing this, to come out again and really understand the importance of bringing in the Tomatis' work with us as we work with emotionally, not just, well, most of the people I work with, outside of a lot of MS people, cancer people, are your usual neurotics, like all of us sitting in the room. And, you know, with a little bit more here and there, we're all the variations of the extreme. We've all got everything. There's just some people stuck in the extreme. And working with the listening hand, and now with the listening ear, which I really believe is the same concept. The chakras that you brought up the other day is also another very important element. And my belief in the chakras is that the energy that travels through our body is a problem when it gets stuck. Not that survival is wrong, or the emotional, the power, or we have to leave all this down below our feet to the earth and just live up here, but that the ability to go into those various places is very important.
I agree totally with Don and with Ilana too. All is music in the world, and all the cells are dancing. The chromosomic system is a dance of the chromosome to reproduce the thing. That we do, perhaps to have the chance to know more the pathway of the neurologic system, and what we're doing is the same that you do yourself, but directly with the system nervous central. Because you remember the cochlea is the macula of all the tegments. It's very important. And all the zones are not so sensitive as the other one. This is the most important, at the right side, and here too. Remember that before the sacred man touched here and here with the cross, because they are the sensitive part, the most sensitive parts of the circadian system. The back is more obscure, because you have no sensitive easily. For this reason, you put a lot of things behind, and you have the possibility after to understand, because it is without connection. If you touch, you help in the cases. I agree totally that with your work, and that we are doing is the same, but perhaps with some facility, because first, when you work for an hour with someone, you are dependent of this self. Now we have the possibility to touch the same level with one apparatus for 10 each hour, with 10 person an hour. If you do the job for all the America, the same work that you're doing now needs to have approximately the half part of the state creating the other, because they are all it needs to be helped. The chap for boy, the same thing. If they are going in the field of speech therapy, if you help boy alone, needs to have a million of speech therapists to help all the boys in the world. Now, with an apparatus, we have the chance to help in 15 days, approximately, with one apparatus, 10 boys. And it's finished. Now, that we're doing, I think it is a sort of first pedagogy, not first by the importance, but in the time. If you introduce immediately the people in the listening after they are free. Now, if someone is resisting after I send to you, if all of the same thing for the gimmick, for the men working with the bone of the skirt, but if they are liberated with the sound, it's finished. You take the other one. Someone are blocked, needs to have more things, and you send directly. In France, you have the same thing. Now, much psychoanalysts have apparatus too. They start itself, and if it's finished, it's finished. If it needs some psychotherapy, they follow after. And in Paris, we send also the same thing. It's rare, because we have the chance to liberate a lot of people. But if it is too deep, and for some mentalities need some help. Now, also in France, for example, you are more difficult, perhaps with the psychoanalytic system, a lot of people are lost totally. Because they are speaking about the defect, and all the system nervous is spoiled after. Depends on the psychotherapist, sure. But before, without apparatus so sophisticated that we have now, it is impossible for us to save this person. Now we have the chance, after 20 years of psychoanalysts, the psychoanalyst sent to us to liberate, to clean, and perhaps to go further with themselves. I think this is a new thing, in fact. For the field of dawn, the same thing. With sound, with a mantra, in fact. You liberate a lot of things. You liberate all the chakra. The good sound is mantra. If you are speaking in English or in French, the sound itself is mantra. Mantra means a sacred sound. I think it's false. Means to give energy to the brain to reach the point of the sacred thing. Totally different. To have a chance to reach God needs to have a great energy. To pray needs to have a great energy. And it's difficult to say one prayer, you say in the prayer, without thinking about other things. Then you start, you know, I think it is François d'Assise, the Saint François d'Assise, is with the ass, you say ass, donkey. And it's avec son âne, yes. And he met a man, and the man, he said, what are you doing? I pray. Oh, it's so easy to pray. Yes, you're sure? I think it's difficult. No, you have the possibility to do so. Yes? Perhaps try to do with me. And if you pray without thinking about other things, I give my animal. And she start, Father, and so on, and stop. Then if you give me your animal, you give also the cell. What's it? the reaction. It's got reaction. Sure, always you are attracted by positive things. You need to have a great, great energy to think on the abstract fields. And now, I think with neurologically, we have some keys to understand that the Tibetan do before that all the monks do the same time. We have the chance now to reveal this and perhaps to have some sort of short way to do quickly. Don is a researcher, and he said it's interesting for me to discover all things by myself. He's right. But he needs to think. A lot of people are suffering for the moment. He needs to go quick. And if you are involved to have a good journey and good listening after your job is facilitated a lot of time. Now you have with you thousand people. After perhaps much more. Next, and to instruct the other to give also the same job. Your life take a sense if you push the other to do the same thing they do. Okay, thank you.
In the last 10 years, since I heard of your work through a very important tape, Chanting Voice in the Earth, which I'm happy to say over the last 10 years I've distributed over 4,000 of these tapes. I've realized that the remembrance of some quality of this work has come to many people. It came to me just very simply and quickly. 3 years ago, your center was just getting started. There were really no centers in the United States. There was a research center in Cleveland, but it has been a tremendous challenge to become so excited about what one sees in the depth of this work and not having an easy facility for teachers and therapists to get a taste that is authentic. And as all of you realize, every question that is answered creates 100 new questions. And this goes logarithmically by as your ear opens. I hope we don't have another 100 lives to fulfill all the questions that are coming. But something that's been very important for me and is to bring others into postures of listening for this new possibility in sound. Each and every one of you has 1,000 resources. And to entertain a thought, they are threatening to our reptilian brain, our left brain, and our poor limbic system doesn't know what to do about it in the midst of new ideas. So an important part of the role for me has been, how do I invite my colleagues to listen and not say too much or too little, and to represent this very important work with an authenticity coupled with I'm a manic jubilant and over-excited about the joyous aspects of this. So the real dedication here is to say, how do we invite others to listen that is not threatening without giving too much, and each of us has to do that in a tremendous sense of our own discrimination of what is appropriate, really appropriate, and not just overdo it. This week is very important for me in a lot of ways, because tomorrow morning is the birth of my book on education with Chris Brewer, who will be here next week, called Rhythms of Learning. Billy has written the full appendix on the Tomatis method for general education, and the book itself talks about Dr. Lozanoff and your method, Dee Coulter's remarkable work on the brain, and in a way how Billy and I came together by literally years of going around the country. Billy is the only person who has been in my milieu who would call me and say, well, what's interesting, and I would tell her, and within 6 months she was there at that center. She's been to 100 centers seeing these different operations of great schools. Well, it's amazing. We are here as resident symphonies, and some of the overtones and some of these songs and things are appropriate for others to remember. And I feel that this week and next week and this time is really critical and really respecting. It was so important for me yesterday to hear this history and see, decade by decade, your struggle. I'm just reading your biography for the third time in the third different translation that will be out this year. And every time I read it, I really honor the struggle and the pain of your early life and the tremendous truth on the irregularities of non-listening. That I'm reading the book and it just says, well, I'm so totally inadequate in a certain environment, and the openness and the availability and the exemplary sense of loving in my life music so much that I do, to have an opportunity to live in the joy of it and see it, be a healer in the chanting, in the song. The real listening is listening to the body, listening in the body, listening to the intellect. And if anything is holistic, it is that feeling of joy, that integration as a human body. The left brain homework that we've got to learn these terms with a certain sense of integrity that we can speak to our colleagues and not be defensive about feeling, thinking, being, and allowing this full body. This is the waveform. And there's a still point in the middle of it. And there is this active embrace that has thousands of overtones or sine waves or whatever. But we really are in an appropriate place, and the society is noticing that these fields are breaking down, and the new paradigms will demand every bit of intellectual, spiritual, and emotional integrity. And you're sitting next to the person who has that answer.
Yes, we are living in the bath of sonic bath, in fact. All is sound. And we react. And the first and the greatest instrument for the music is a human body. When you have you play with violin or cello or the thing, it is a sort of prolongation of something at your body. If you are not the good structure